Hi, hello everyone. It is May 8th, 2025, and wanted to do a knee-jerk reaction video to the announcement of the new trade deal between the United States and the United Kingdom. Before I do that, I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers and thank you to all the people leaving comments in the comment section. Really appreciate it. Please hope some of you watching this will also like and subscribe. And by the way, I do not believe in echo chambers, so if you think I'm wrong about something, please feel free to say it in the comments section. Share data, share different opinions. It's always good to have a nice, healthy debate, and please always be polite and respectful to everyone. Okay, so on to the trade deal. First thing to know is it is not a trade deal. It is essentially a series of bullet points that the two countries have agreed to. We do not have a written text or draft yet. They still have to do that, and according to both sides, there are quite a few details left to be ironed out. So what we have now is essentially a framework from which a deal can now be created, but that is about it. From the fact sheets that I've been able to review from both the US and the UK, what it looks like is that the United States will allow about, I'm sorry, here, let me back that up. First, a few basics about American-British trade. The United Kingdom is America's 12th largest trading partner. We do about 3% of our trade with them. It's worth somewhere in the 150 and 120 billion pound range. Sorry, the numbers I was looking at were denoted in pounds, so probably a little higher in dollars, like 130 billion or 140 billion, something like that. Britain's primary export to the United States is autos. They produce 800,000-ish cars per year in Great Britain. About 600,000 or so of them come to the United States, especially luxury brands like Land Rover and Jaguar. So onto the deal. Basically what the deal does is it knocks down the 25% auto tariff on the first 100,000 British vehicles into the United States. They will just pay the standard 10% tariff. What the steel and aluminum tariffs are also eliminated. Britain exports very little in the way of steel and aluminum to the United States, so this really isn't going to be that big of a deal, but every little bit helps, I guess. The 10% does still remain in place across all goods. The average British tariff on American goods is about 0.5%, so less than 1%. The reason for this is that over half of all American products that come into Great Britain are at zero tariffs. They're free trade. The ones that do have tariffs tend to have very, very low ones. The highest one would be American agricultural products, which have around a 9.2% tariff. So what this agreement has allowed for is some American agricultural products, namely ethanol and beef, to come into the United Kingdom without having to pay that tariff. However, it should be noted that American beef cannot be raised with hormones and must meet all the United Kingdom health and safety standards, which means overall not much American beef is going to go into Great Britain. There's also an allowance that the British can export 13,000 metric tons of their beef to the United States tariff-free. So there's a little bit of an exchange there. I looked up, I was curious to see how much beef we export, and found a list of our top 15 beef export markets, and the British weren't on it. Now, admittedly, the list I found was from 2021, so it's a few years old. It may have changed, but it couldn't have changed that much. There's no way Britain's that big of a market for our beef. So it looks like this allows some additional American agricultural products to go to the British. It allows some additional British agricultural products to come to the United States. It does allow some British cars to come into the United States at the 10% tariff rate. The rest will be at a much higher tariff rate. Also, that provision, if what I read was correct, only lasts for 12 months, and then we're back to where we started. On balance, I would say this is not that big of a deal. This appears to be a very limited trade deal, appears to have very narrow application, and it appears to largely affect things that we don't do a whole lot of trade on anyway, with the exception of British automotive exports to the United States. That appears to be by far the biggest. So what does this mean in terms of, is this a good deal or a bad deal? From a political standpoint, any deal Trump signs is good for him. He has promised his supporters deals. From their perspective, any deal he signs just simply must be amazing and incredible. The content of the deal is irrelevant to that. From their perspective, as it's all about being able to say someone bent the knee or they caved. As long as they can say that, they're pretty happy. They don't really care what the details of the deal are. So the MAGA rights can be very happy for this. So pretty good politics for Trump. Centrist voters, I don't think are going to care a whole lot one way or the other. They'll probably read a headline, say, oh, big trade deal, assume it's a good thing, and then move on. If you're a Democrat, you're probably going to be, try to probably come to the conclusion the deal is terrible. I would say it's not a terrible deal. It's not. No, I'm sorry. So that was a political analysis. Let's take an economic analysis. Economic analysis. This does at least temporarily get rid of some of the worst of Trump's tariffs. It does open the door somewhat for some additional U.S. agricultural exports. Allows some additional British agricultural imports. I like steak, so I'm all for, hey, more beef in America. That works for me. Overall, though, I wouldn't go so far as call it a nothing burger, but I would say this is a very minimalist trade agreement. So again, we don't even actually have the deal. We just have a framework that we're talking about here. I know Trump was saying it's comprehensive and it's thorough. It is neither, not at all. Again, it's merely a framework. But then again, this was also hammered out in the course of about a month. I mean, what do you expect them to do in a month besides come up with a couple of bullet points for some very limited, narrow window things? Again, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 2, maybe a 3 at best. And that's predominantly because it's opening the door to further trade talks. What you compare it to will also have a lot to do with how you view it. If you compare it to the trade arrangements we had with the British prior to Trump taking office, to me anyway, I would say this deal sucks. It cuts Americans off from certain British brands that they really like. It doesn't really do much to help us at all. I mean, again, maybe a touch for our farmers. There's really not much else in there. Doesn't do anything to help the reindustrialization of America. You know, if you compare it to Trump's Liberation Day tariff regime, this is a big improvement. We've gotten rid of some really bad self-imposed trade barriers, at least on a temporary basis. So I would say compared to that, it's a pretty good deal. But again, what baseline you're using has a lot to do with how you would view this deal from an economic standpoint. Again, overall, I don't think it's all that big of a deal, but it is what we've got, and it is definitely better than what we had yesterday. Hopefully this will turn into a full-fledged, proper agreement. I would love to see, honestly, if I had my way, and this is just my opinion, I would want to see the United Kingdom fully brought into NAFTA along with Australia and New Zealand, and just have almost complete free trade between Canada, the United States, Mexico, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. Probably some other Central American countries that we should include in that. Wouldn't mind having countries like Bahamas and Jamaica potentially included in that. I'm a big fan of sort of a North American-led free trade bloc and an Anglophone American-led trade bloc. But that's my personal opinion. That's opinion, not fact. So either way, I hope everyone's having a good day, and congratulations to all my Catholic friends on the election of Pope Leo the 14th, I think. All right, bye-bye.